Hi, my name is Shannon Andre, and I'm here today with, before we get started, how do you say your last name, John?
That's funny. Okay, it's Rivoli.
Okay.
It's not Rivoli. It's not ravioli, which is how I went through school as ravioli, but it's Rivoli.
Okay. So if the two L's, I know obviously you're Italian, so if the two L's, the accent's on the second or something?
Yeah, if there were two L's, it would be Rivoli. But there's
Okay.
not. There's just one. So it's Rivoli. So that's it.
Rivoli.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rivoli.
So we are here today with John Rivoli, and he basically has done, you've worked on pretty much every film you can think of, but I think most people know John from Rocky and the Rocky world. So what was your first job? What did you do? How did you become all this?
Very first job is, when I started, there were no computers. We were still doing everything by hand with paint and markers. So my very first job was recoloring textiles for a textile company. So they would bring me a pattern of flowers or something, and a buyer maybe wanted that pattern, but in a different color. So I had to recreate it and repaint it for them. That was my first professional job, actually, before I got into this world that I am now.
Okay, and so did you always know like you wanted to be an artist? And I mean, you obviously were classically trained and studied, I think, in Italy.
Yeah, but
Right.
I always knew from a young age. I've been doing this since as far back as I can remember, 5 years old. I was always drawing all the time. So I would watch a TV show or a movie and I would draw it as I was watching it, or afterwards I would draw like a comic book version of what I just watched.
Okay.
So I've been doing it forever. I knew I was going to do this. It was either that or a doctor, which I probably should have been the doctor, but
I bet you would have been a great plastic surgeon. Especially
Yeah.
I mean, if you're good with the tools and the
Yeah.
art and all that.
yep, probably.
So getting on to Rocky, so I wanted everyone to know he's just not a Rocky guy. He's way more than just Rocky. So can you tell us a little bit more about, you're sure it's the best kept secret in Hollywood? I always say he is the best kept secret in Hollywood because you've pretty much worked on the majority of films out there that not a lot of people know about.
Yeah, I mean, I started a company basically right out of college, Rivoli Design Group. And I went out to California and just knocked on the doors of the studios. Back in the day, you could do that kind of thing. And I kept knocking until somebody let me in. And I actually remember it was Universal Studios.
Ah.
And they let me in, and they hired me to do new artwork for Woody Woodpecker. That was my first job in the entertainment industry.
Was Woody Woodpecker?
Woody Woodpecker.
Okay.
Yeah, the Walter Lantz cartoon from way back in the day. And I had to reimagine him for the 90s, which was all about extreme sports and things. So I redrew Woody Woodpecker in all these current scenarios that he
Right.
might be in. That was the very first thing that I did. And once I did that, they kind of, Universal shared me with the other studios and let them know who I was. And that's how I was able to get my foot in the door of every studio. But the real claim to fame for me was I was a character art guy. That was the thing that I focused on is character artwork. And back in those days, we did everything by hand.
Right.
So we would draw the character, and then we would ink the character with a paintbrush
geez.
and ink. And you would sit there, just like the guys did all in the 30s and the 40s, and we would ink the characters by hand,
Jeez.
one at a time. And then we would scan those into the computer, and that's how we used the art. But there were a lot of flaws with that. And remember, this is early on when computers just were coming out.
Right,
This
right.
was very, very early. It was the Wild West in those days. And I worked with Adobe and to develop the pen tool.
Oh, way. No way.
And that allowed me to draw directly into the computer. So I
Okay.
could skip all those steps I just told you. I can go right onto the computer with the pen tool and actually plot points and draw the characters. So I was the first one to do that. Nobody had ever done that before. I was the first. So I did samples of it. I went out to the studios and showed it to them, and just, you could see their faces light up. They knew what I was showing them because this made flawless character art.
Wow.
Flawless. You could do anything with it. Before that, it was very limited because there were imperfections all over the place. But this created a perfect line art. because it was vector based, and vector is not based on resolution in the computer. So you could take my art and literally blow it up and put it on the Empire State Building.
Wow.
And it'll look exactly as I drew it in a small version.
Right.
And that was my real claim to fame. And then I, worked for every studio doing all of their character art in that process. And, we were doing thousands of characters a month.
Jeez.
For decades. We were doing all this. We were the only guys doing that. Yep, me and my team.
Wow. So then you got turned on to doing Rocky? How did all that
Well, no,
come
I mean,
about, or no?
by doing that character art, that kept us very busy.
Right.
And then we would do
It's like a decade you did that, or?
more like 3 decades.
3 decades,
And
wow.
yeah, and we would work on every movie and every TV show that came out, and we would create artwork for these properties, whether it be the movie poster or marketing materials or point of sale materials that you'll see hanging in Target, those things with characters on it.
Right.
Somebody's making all that. That would be
That's
us.
you.
That would be me and the guys who work with me. And
Can you tell us some of the stuff that you've worked on, like?
Sure. I mean,
Disclose it?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the Karate Kid movies,
Yes.
the Karate Kid remakes,
Love Ralph Macchio.
Lord of the Rings, the entire Harry Potter franchise. So that was a
Wow.
real big
Wow.
one for us. That's way back 2000, probably back in 2000, and that was a Warner Brothers property. And I worked with the great artist Fred Bodie, and we still work together to this day. And he and I kind of spearheaded all of this. He was coming up with the blue line drawing phases of it. I was doing my digital thing with it, and together we were just banging out tons and tons of artwork. So we developed everything for Harry Potter, working directly with J.K. Rowling.
How was it working with her?
She was great. She trusted us. A lot of creators don't. They are very protective of their property, but the smart ones will let the experts do what they do best, and she was one of those.
Right.
And at that time, then I signed on with Warner Brothers. I went under contract. So everything that came out of that studio
Wow.
from 2000 till basically now, as far as characters, Scooby-Doo and Tom and Jerry, all the Looney Tunes, the Jetsons, all that stuff is us.
Did you draw the Explorer too?
Well, that's Nickelodeon. So
okay.
after we signed on with Warner, Nickelodeon found out about me,
Okay.
and then I signed a contract with them, and I started doing everything for them, which was Dora the Explorer and
Wow.
Go Diego Go and Lazy Town and Max and Ruby. Whatever came out of Nickelodeon, we were doing all that artwork. And the big one was SpongeBob.
I was gonna say, I know your big one was that. I was waiting for you to say it.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. We worked directly with the creator back in '99, and I developed what that character ultimately looked like. All the way it's, the line work on it and the colors, all that stuff is made the way he looks.
So once you draw it, then it goes to another process. Like, take me through that process? So you're drawing SpongeBob or Plankton. I'm learning some of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
My kids watched it growing up. So take me through the process. Once you draw it, then it's handed off to a different department, like for.
No, it's all us. So
all you?
yeah, we
Wow.
draw it, and
Okay.
we get the drawings approved, and then we do my digital process to it, where we ink and color it, and then we compile all of that artwork
All the scenes.
into a book.
Wow.
And that book is called the Style Guide. And that is the Bible for anything that you see, any property that you see on television. These style guides are given out to partners all around the world who are going to make consumer products to make money, right?
Oh, wow.
On this thing. So they make shirts and backpacks and whatever
Karate
they make.
Kid.
Yeah. But they all use the same art. You think, oh, Japan's making that art and
Right.
No, all that art came from one
Wow.
book. We make that book.
That's amazing.
And that's how they
It's
stay
amazing.
consistent. We pick the colors, the font. That's why it's consistent. And nobody really knows that we're doing that. Everybody thinks the studios are doing that, but they're not. That's why, I was interviewed many years ago, and they said, you are the best kept secret in Hollywood.
Hence the shirt,
Yeah.
the best kept secret in Hollywood. Truly,
Exactly.
you
Why
really
not
are.
advertise it now?
Well,
Or
now-
just
we're
the
not-
opposite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's great.
But
Not a secret anymore. I feel like you
No.
should let your fans know, because I see different things that you've done, and I'm like, oh wow, you did this, and then you worked on Wicked even,
yeah.
and
yeah.
I was shocked. I got a Barbie doll, and one of my friend's grandkids wanted to have their Barbie signed, and I'm like, oh, you did that too?
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, just at a broader point, there was a time when if anybody wanted to see a portfolio of ours, I would tell them just go to Target.
Oh, gosh.
Just go down the toy aisle, and everything you see on those shelves is ours.
Wow.
Everything, the packaging, the artwork on the packaging, whatever it is. I mean, I used to just go in those stores and take pictures all day long. It was all of our artwork. The industry has changed since. It's not as big as it once was, but that's how it was. And Wicked, yeah, that was most recently that we had to do paintings of the characters of Glinda and Elphaba, and
They were on strike, right?
that's why we got
Yeah.
hired, because the actor strike came in and they could not photograph them in order to make marketing materials
Right.
and packaging and things. So they hired us to paint them, and we did these very photorealistic paintings of the
wow.
characters. So yeah, I mean, I've forgotten more than I remember about what I've done, but even if I go in the store now, I can point out stuff that,
Green Lantern. Did you do Green Lantern?
yeah, we did all of the DC stuff: Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, The Flash, all of that. We did a lot of the Marvel stuff for many years, and it's really all because of that process I told you about earlier. That changed the industry.
Yeah.
When we made characters digital, that absolutely changed the industry.
Was there a patent? You can't patent that, can you?
We could have if we thought about it, but it was all moving very quickly. Computers were just coming out, and we developed this thing, and we were excited, and we wanted to share it. And there's a time limit before you
Right.
can protect something. If I had,
Wow.
I would have been able to license this technology to everybody around the world, and it would have been a different.
But back then, everybody was just kind of sharing.
We were
'cause
just
it's
doing
new,
it
computers
fast.
were
We
new.
didn't. Yep, we didn't know what we had
Wow, that's amazing.
at the time. Yeah.
So, what other films? I know you've done film posters and things like that for the movies that are coming out. A lot of Hollywood premieres, things like that.
Yeah, we do a lot of
posters that
film
Can you think of
posters and
anything
stuff.
off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, look, I'm a big lover of pop culture. So I try to snag the jobs of things that I know really, really well and I'm interested in. And another one of those was The Godfather.
Ah,
Yeah, so when The Godfather had its, I believe, 30th anniversary or 35th, Paramount commissioned me to do all of this artwork
wow.
for it. So I did tons and tons of art, again,
Wow.
for a style guide that was used all around the world. And in fact, part of that was I made posters, mock posters that would have come out in 1972 for different countries.
No way.
And apparently they looked so real that they have since been published as these were the posters
Whoa.
from 1972. And I just laughed because I just made them recently.
That's so crazy. That's a
Yeah.
great year, by the way. But
Yeah.
yeah, 72 is a great year.
Yep.
But anyway, that is fascinating.
Yeah, so I try to get those jobs, and you asked about Rocky.
Yeah.
So during all this
That
time of what
kinda-
I'm describing to you, MGM was a client. We were doing things for them for Pink Panther and RoboCop and the James Bond
you
franchise.
worked on James Bond too.
Yeah, we did some things for that, and
wow, I didn't
they
know that.
owned Rocky, which I'm the biggest Rocky guy in the world. That is my thing, Rocky. And I contacted MGM and I let them know, if you ever do anything with this property, you have to call me. And I said that to them for about 10 years. And eventually I got the call. I was coming up on the 35th anniversary of Rocky.
Wow.
So they commissioned me to do a style guide, and I did all of this artwork, a lot of original painting stuff. So I was just in my zone for this. And what I didn't know was that they were planning, MGM was planning on bringing me to Sylvester Stallone when I was done so I could present it to him
How cool
myself.
is that?
Yeah, which I did. I still remember the whole process. They told me on a
Take me through the process. So you go.
I was
you
in
fly
New
to
York.
California?
I'm in New York, and,
Right.
and on a Tuesday afternoon, I got a phone call that I needed to be there tomorrow morning.
Oh.
So I ran. I was in the gym, and I ran back to the studio and did everything I could to find a flight, and I couldn't find one. Everything was booked. I mean, you're talking about hours.
Wow.
And then something opened up. And I booked this flight, got up at like 4 a.m. or something, flew right out to LA, MGM picked me up from the airport, took me back to their offices. I changed in the bathroom, and then they took me right to Sly's office, which was in Beverly Hills at the time. And I'll never forget, before I saw him, because I'm waiting, I'm in this room, I got all my art on this big long table, ready to present it to him. I'm set. And it's quiet, and all of a sudden I hear him, because he has that strong baritone voice. You can't mistake it. So before I saw him, I heard him, and I'm standing in this room looking out the door at this long hallway, and I hear him, and then all of a sudden he just turns the corner and starts coming.
Wow.
So it was the first I saw him, like, well, here he comes. Here's Rocky. And it was the best way that I could have met him, because MGM introduced me as their Rocky aficionado. They just flew in from New York, all this stuff. It was just a great way to be presented to him. So I didn't have to be a fanboy,
Right.
going through that humiliating process. It was more of like, I'm on a professional level,
Right.
which is how I wanted it.
Right.
And so that's how I was introduced. And Sly, being the phenomenal artist that he is.
That's right. He is an artist. He
Phenomenal
paints.
artist. And I mean, his work is in galleries
I've seen some of his stuff. It's
all
amazing
over the world.
too.
It's some of my favorite stuff. I'm super inspired by his artwork. He is a natural artist. He is just gifted with abilities that, are usually taught, not always received, but he clearly was born with it. He knows how to navigate a canvas and tell a story and pull the viewer in.
Right.
So he, is looking at my stuff. So we connected on an artist level right away. He was asking me things like, how do you do these textures in the painting and things like that? And first of all, my head is saying, Rocky is asking me how I do something. That's all I could think, and as I'm trying to come up with an answer. And I remember after that meeting, I went back to the hotel and I called my father and I said, yeah, Rocky was asking me how I paint. Can you believe it? Because my dad's a huge Rocky fan too. My whole family is.
I love it.
So that's how I met him. And 5 years later, it was the 40th anniversary, and I got tapped to do the same thing.
Okay.
More paintings. And so he knew me at this point, but we kind of hit it off a little bit.
Right.
And that's when he asked me to do a painting.
So he commissioned you basically.
Yeah, to do a painting.
That's cool.
Yeah, he had an idea for it. It was his concept, described exactly what he wanted for Beverly. We were in Beverly Hills, and he wanted it for this place in Beverly Hills to hang it. And he's describing the whole thing. And the only thing I added is that I just asked, please let me do Rocky in the leather. In the leather, not Rocky in the sweatsuit celebrating, because that's a Rocky, but the real Rocky is the man in the leather. That's who we all relate to, the guy waiting for his moment. Right? That's all of us. We're waiting for a moment to see if we rise to that occasion. So he described the whole thing, and then I remember he looked at me and goes, so do you want to do it? and I'll never forget, I still cringe at this, but I said, there's nobody better. And I don't know why I said that.
I totally agree.
Yeah, but you just don't say that. And I don't know why I said it. And I cringe at it to this day. But I took it on, and I was terrified to do this for him because, this is it. I'm either going to pull this off or it's going to be incredibly embarrassing.
Well, apparently you did such a great job. You're still doing it.
Yeah. Well, I flew back to New York, and I did the painting, and then I shipped it out to L.A., and I flew out to meet it. And we met up where I could present it to him. And by chance, the paparazzi was there that day.
Oh God, of course.
So they filmed the entire thing, which was great. It was a great way to document the beginning of this relationship and the beginning of what would become this venture that I would do to retell Rocky through artwork.
Right.
So I did this piece. He loved it. He changed his mind where he was going to hang it and actually brought it into his favorite restaurant where he used to hang out all the time, Cafe Roma, which is no longer there.
Aw.
But he and other celebrities would hang there. It was kind of their safe space.
Right.
And he hung it on the wall, and then he looked at me and goes, I need 2 more, 1 for each side. So I'm back, and I did it again. So I had 3 paintings that hung in Cafe Roma, and that was kind of the beginning of me starting to do this, these collection of Rocky paintings.
Right.
And fans would start reaching out, asking, can I buy a print?
Right.
And that's how I started the whole icons in art, of making, limited edition giclées of these paintings.
Right. So it's more affordable. So
Yeah.
you're not spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
buying like an original or something that, unless, you're commissioned and it's a huge piece.
Right.
I don't know your pricing.
Yeah, it depends on the size. But it
Right.
really grew into something nice because it really is a collaboration with Sly, because he has great ideas as an artist. So he'll sometimes send me a photo and say, this would make a great painting.
Did you do anything for Tulsa King? Like, I love Tulsa King.
I did, yeah. He asked me to do 3 pieces for Tulsa King, but it was his vision again.
Wow.
He knew exactly what he wanted. He's a great art director, and he wanted me to paint it to make it look like old, bullet shot, worn side of the road signs on like Route 66 or something.
Yeah.
And to paint it like that. So yeah, I did Tulsa King as well, and I do Rambo. Anything. I mean, I have that man's structure.
Oh, you can definitely
Down,
tell. I've been. If you haven't been on his site or his website, you need to go visit his site, iconsandart.com. Rivoli Design. I'm just trying to think of how to get in touch with you, but that's the site I go to look at, like all his beautiful work. But I just wanted people to also get to know all the other things that you've done. Is there anything that's up and coming, or anything that you can talk about or not talk about?
Yeah, there's always something coming. Look, the big thing is that in 2026 is going to be the 50th anniversary.
Oh
of
my
Rocky.
gosh, that's right. Holy cow, 50
Make everybody feel
years,
old. Sorry.
50, that's making me feel really old.
Yeah.
50 years of Rocky. That is insane.
Yeah, because I saw that in the theaters in 1976.
Me too.
I saw it 13 times in the movie theater, which was kind of a rare thing back then to do that.
50 years of Rocky. Oh my gosh, y'all.
Yeah,
That's
50 years. So we're working closely with Amazon and MGM, because Amazon bought MGM.
Okay.
And we're planning all kinds of big things.
That's right.
I can't talk about all of them,
Yeah.
but there are going to be a lot of things to celebrate
Can't
for
wait for
the
that.
Rocky 50th. I am also doing a book,
Whoa.
a coffee table book that I'm calling an Artrospective.
That's really
50
cool.
Years of Rocky. The
Wow.
Art of Rocky is the name of the book.
Okay.
So it's going to have every piece I've ever done
Oh, wow.
in there, with every story behind it.
So if you can't buy the art, you can get
You can
your
have
art through
everything
the
in this book, yeah, and it's going to
Okay.
have all the reasons why I did this painting. There's always a reason, and there'll be a lot of cool stories in there that Sly may have shared with me, and a lot of rare photography and things. So it's going to be a
That's
really
cool.
beautiful piece for the 50th. So that'll be out, hopefully in time for the celebration.
cool.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And then, on the film side, I'm working with my writing partner, Robert Bruzio, filmmaker, great writer. He made the movie Bottom of the Ninth.
Yes, I
with
love that with Sofia Vergara and Joe Manganiello.
Manganiello, right?
Yeah, it's
exactly.
a great movie.
He's got a lot of different movies in the hopper right now, but we wrote one together, which is kind of a celebration of the Rocky universe. It's a real love letter to Rocky. It's something very, very cool. It's going to introduce a new generation to Rocky.
That's right.
As well, because these young generation,
Gen
they're not
Z,
like us.
they
They
don't-
weren't brought
yeah.
up on Rocky, and a lot of them aren't getting it, or it's not being passed along to everyone.
That makes sense.
We're going to solve that problem. We have cracked the code on that, and we have solved that problem, and we are going to bring Rocky to an entirely new generation to add to its legacy and keep that going.
What a
'Cause
great legacy
it's really
for
all
Sly.
about legacy. Yeah, everything
gosh.
is about legacy right now. I want to do my small part that I can for this film that meant so much to me. So the artwork that I'm doing, the book, and this film would be, my and for the film Robert's contribution
Right.
to this legacy.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
and
excited.
We'll see, so that's kind of the things we have coming up, and then also, I'm starting to put together a collection of
Some new ventures?
some things that I'm working on that hopefully just to break out into some new territories.
That's great.
And maybe get a gallery going with some other artwork in there
That's
to share with
really-
people, because
Really fun.
there's a lot of different iconic figures that people may want to display.
I have a few I could think of, but
Yeah.
anyway, I'm going to keep that to myself. But I know you like to hide things too. One thing I know John had done a piece for me, and you like to hide things. So for me, it was always fun to go back and look at the painting, which I have here in my home, to see what he hid in there, things that I liked. Like you asked me things that I liked or about my personality, and you have to look for it, but you hide a lot of things in the art itself, or you have happy accidents is what you call them, right? Sometimes too.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I
oh.
try to hide things. It's important to me that people stop when
Yeah.
they see art. Stop and study it and see what they can get out of it. It shouldn't be a quick thing. You know, they should take the time to look in there and start to see what's unfolding inside of it. There's a story. It's a mindset I apply when I do a movie poster.
Right.
You know, I have a second to grab these people and make them buy a ticket, right? So I make them stop, and it's got to be so compelling that something is making them study it,
Right.
and see what's in it. Sometimes the poster is better than the film, and then I get blamed. But I always do try to do that. I want to tell a story. That's what art should be. It should show you something you haven't seen before.
That's great.
Yeah.
And leave the place better, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else you want to share with us?
Well, I mean, like I said, I've forgotten more than I remember. So if you see something on the shelf, you could assume that I did it.
Okay.
If it's a cartoon character or any kind of a TV show or something, you can probably,
I'm
like,
just thinking-
even Seinfeld. I did everything for
Oh.
Seinfeld. So
Oh,
when
you
go
did
out,
that game thing.
yeah, I did
Right?
the Festivus.
Festivus.
I created
Yes,
the
I remember
whole
that.
campaign for Festivus. So
That was cool.
Yeah, they made, they sell that little Festivus pole and all that box
Right.
and everything. I made all that. So I created the logo. They came to me and I said, I'm going to pretend that I'm sitting in office and Festivus is a real thing.
Yeah.
And that the boss just asked me to, come up with this logo and everything for this new holiday. So that's what I did.
that's
And even
fun.
the regular Seinfeld, when you see toy, kind of game
Yeah.
or anything, that packaging
Yeah.
with the diner on it
Yeah.
and stuff.
You did all that too?
I did all that stuff.
What
Like
have
I
you
said,
not done?
I can't really remember everything that I've done, but I'm very lucky. It's been a good career.
It's a blessing.
Yeah.
And then you also, I mean, when I say artist in every sense of the word, you even play the guitar. Like you shocked me one
Oh,
day,
God.
and I was having a little jam session on my piano, and you're playing the guitar. So literally, I would say you're such a creative in every aspect, from writing to film to painting. I mean, FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, where you
Yeah,
went
I
to school,
studied
right?
there, and then I went to school in Italy.
Oh, that's
so
right,
that's
that's
where I
right.
learned how to paint. I
Okay.
studied in Florence, Italy, and I studied the old masters. My favorite artist of all time is Caravaggio. So I study his work very closely, and you'll see his influence in my paintings, especially my Rocky paintings, because he really kind of made famous the technique of chiaroscuro, which is extreme lights and darks.
Okay.
And that makes everything very dramatic and tells a story very quickly. You know who the good guys are and who the bad guys
Yeah.
are very quickly just by lighting.
Wow.
So I try to incorporate that into a lot of my Rocky paintings. But yeah, I mean, being in Italy studying changed everything for me. Everything.
amazing.
I mean, we would go look at these, these classic pieces,
Wow.
the Botticellis and the Caravaggios.
Yeah.
We would go to the museums, and they made us set up with an easel and paint in the
Outside?
museum.
Oh,
in the
oh,
museum.
wow.
While the people were in there walking through, we were standing there repainting what we're looking at.
That's really
We
cool.
actually had to do that.
That's
so
a
that,
great
on the job
experience.
training, right? But yeah, going to Italy was what just kind of changed my whole trajectory of painting.
That's great.
Yeah, so I bring that to what I do now.
Well, thank you for sitting here with me today,
Mm-hmm.
and thank you guys for watching. And John is such an amazing, very humble, if you couldn't tell by just having to pull it out a little bit, but he's such a humble guy. But I feel like people need to know all the things that you've done, because you're not just the Rocky guy. You are the Rocky guy, but you're so much more too, and all the other things that you've done and helped people. And also, I know you're working on some other philanthropy type things for people that it just warms my heart. So check out John Rivoli. And where's the best way for people to get in touch with you or find you?
Well, if they want to see my Rocky stuff, and those kinds of paintings, Tulsa King and stuff like that, it's iconsandart.com. If they want to see all the movie stuff, it's rivolidesign.com.
Okay.
So either one of those sites, you can check me out. And then, of course, my Instagram, where I'm always posting.
Oh, yeah, you got a ton of people
really
on
cool
Instagram.
stuff. Yeah, just check me out on Instagram. It's John_Rivoli.
And that's Rivoli.
Rivoli,
not
right back where we
ravioli,
started. Exactly.
Not Rivoli, John Rivoli. So thanks again to John Rivoli. Appreciate you guys watching and can't wait to do the next podcast with you.
Thank you.
Bye.